If you don't believe me, then view the screenshots of the information that comes directly from the manufacturers. I will include those in this video, and you can follow the links in the description box below. I'm shaking, and I have been a coward for too long in making this video. Many of my fellow Protestants will be angry at me for this video, and that is not my intention. I love you, and I want you to know that I don't think you're a bad person if we disagree on this topic. I don't think you're a bad person if we agree on this topic and you've made some choices that you're not proud of. Whoever is watching this video, just know that you are loved. In case you don't have time to watch the rest of the video, I'm just gonna come right out and say it. It's so important. If you believe that life begins at conception, you unequivocally must be against any type of hormonal or chemical birth control on the market today. Many of you viewers immediately think I'm ignorant because of the statement I just made. I'm going to include links to the birth control inserts, the package inserts themselves, all lay it out there, as well as the physician's desk reference. But I will talk you through it step by step today. I just want you to know that this information, when I found it out, probably in 2004 is when I found this out, I was astonished that the medical community had withheld this from me. I had taken hormonal birth control, and I want to lead this with also that includes the IUD, whether it be hormonal IUD or copper IUD, non-hormonal IUD. All of the birth controls on the market today, aside from condoms and maybe abstinence, all of them prevent implantation in some cases of a fertilized egg. Every single one on the market. So I'm going to go step by step through all of those with you today, but I just want you to know you are loved, and if you have been taking one of these that I'm going to talk about, I do not hold it against you because you didn't read the laborious package insert on the birth control pill or IUD that your doctor prescribed to you. And I am going to say I don't want to embarrass anybody. That's why I thought it would be easier to make this video, and hopefully you will watch it. This is not to slander anyone. This is a topic that needs to be shared because people just don't know. If you have a friend that you need to talk with about this, obviously that's better done in person. This has been a really scary topic for me to film, but God keeps telling me that, you know, if it is my duty, if I see someone being taken to the slaughter, to try to rescue them, to try to hold them back. If you have a different opinion than me, like say you're not a Christian or you have a different faith than I do and you're not against abortion, that is fine, you are loved. But for those of you who have the deep held belief like I do that life begins at conception, like the Christians churches have taught for a very long time, this video is for you. And obviously you're all welcome here. It is not my heart to judge anybody. I have not walked in your shoes. And I just want you to know, I know this is a really tough topic, but it's an important one. And what God cares about me is more important than what my friends think and what anybody thinks of me. And so that is why I'm making this video today. I wish someone would have told me this information sooner, and I'm very thankful for the girl that originally pointed me to this information. That was Allie Reed. You were in my small group in Memphis, Tennessee so many years ago. Thank you very much. My heart goes out to many of my sisters who simply don't know because they didn't read the long, laborious package insert sent home, and some would deem that those package inserts are designed to deceive. The contraception industry is a high dollar industry, so of course, why would the pharmaceutical agencies and the medical community teach on something that is not very profitable? My husband and I, first of all, use the fertility awareness method. I'm not going to get into how to do that during this video, but it is highly accurate. It's a highly accurate method. We've been married a decade with no unplanned pregnancies, and yet we have achieved pregnancy 3 times on the first or second try. This method is not hard to understand. It is not the counting method. Like I said, I'm not going to teach you exactly how to use this method. You can read this book, or there are probably other YouTube videos for that. I am not a doctor. I'm not a fertility expert. Why is this not taught by the medical community when just very little research will show you that birth control is not only abortive in some circumstances, it is highly, highly dangerous for the woman's health. And yet most women are on a birth control pill or an IUD for decades. Why is that not taught? Because this method is free. It costs you nothing except, the cost of this book, which was, as you can see, I picked this copy up. It's just not profitable to teach this. I'm not sure, everyone's motives for not teaching this method, but I do know sometimes people just don't know. Even doctors just don't even know what they don't know. I don't use the pill because it isn't right. The physician's desk reference states that all birth control pills prevent implantation of an already fertilized egg in some cases. A large purpose of a birth control pill or the IUD, I have to say that because I know a lot of Christian women use the IUD thinking that is safe and effective. They just don't know. And it's not because they haven't done their research. It's not necessarily readily available. I mean, it is on the package insert, read it. And I will include screenshots during this video. A large part of the birth control pill or the IUD, or all the forms of birth control on the market that are chemical or hormonal, is to make your womb an unhealthy place for a fertilized egg to stay, which of course is also not good for the woman taking the pill. Implantation and conception are 2 different things. The Christian community has always believed, and the scientific community as well, Christian or non-Christian, forever has taught that life begins at conception. So once the egg hits the sperm, once the sperm hits the egg, a zygote is immediately formed, and that is a life. It can be several days later before that zygote is finished implanting. And if your method of birth control prevents that, that's what the morning after pill is. That's what the abortion pill is. Abby Johnson has a series of articles that summarize it so well. I will be quoting heavily from her article and giving her credit and linking her research in the description box below. Please go in and read all of those articles. I know that she will not mind me quoting her heavily here. Obviously, I'm giving her credit for that. I hope you do watch the whole video. It's going to be highly informative. Now, this is Abby Johnson talking. Let me start out by saying that this article might more than likely anger a lot of people. However, I am committed to telling the truth. Sometimes the truth hurts. But as pro-lifers, this information cannot simply be ignored, regardless of how much it affects our current lifestyle choices. This is the first of a 3-part write-up piece on hormonal contraception. I'm going to add a lot of times because I know a lot of women use the IUD. It includes the IUD, and that is going to be talked about here. I hope you will read all 3 parts and share this factual information with people who may not know these truths. The pro-life mantra has always been life begins at conception. Do we really believe that though? Do we really believe that life begins at the amazing moment of conception? Or do we actually believe that it begins at implantation? You may think that's a silly question. Of course, pro-lifers believe that life begins at conception. Hello, we've been saying that for years. Well, if you truly believe that life begins at conception, you must unequivocally oppose hormonal contraception. The reason for that is the contraceptions on the market today do not always prevent ovulation. In fact, many studies performed by the birth control manufacturers state that only about half of women using their methods actually cease ovulating. Half. So how do these methods work? If you're still ovulating at least half the time, simple. These methods have a backup plan. Hormonal methods also work to thin the lining of the endometrium, also called the uterine wall, so that a newly conceived human being, life begins at conception, right? cannot implant on the uterine wall. Since the baby has nowhere to implant, they are spontaneously aborted. If you don't believe me, then view the screenshots of the information that comes directly from the manufacturers. I will include those in this video, and you can follow the links in the description box below. I'm going to share the copper IUD information first because that is the one that most people I meet are using, because they've done their research and they've been led to believe, maybe through no fault of their own, that the copper IUD or the non-hormonal IUDs are not the same thing. So I'm going to read you that information, and I'm going to include screenshots here in the video as well as links below. This is from the packaging insert. This is not me. This is not some Christian talking. This is a scientist or whoever wrote this. This is the manufacturer speaking themselves. Mechanisms by which copper enhances contraceptive efficacy include interference with sperm transport and fertilization of an egg, and possibly prevention of implantation. By the way, does it sound really safe to be letting copper into your body on a regular basis for years, sometimes even decades? Mirena hormonal IUD. Mirena is packaged sterile with an inserter. The inserter, which is used for the insertion of Mirena, the outer diameter of the insertion tube is 4.4 millimeters. Well, gee, I can't believe you haven't read through all that. Studies of Mirena and similar prototypes have suggested several mechanisms that prevent pregnancy: thickening of cervical mucus, preventing passage of sperm into the uterus, inhibition of sperm capacitation or survival, and alteration of the endometrium. That's to prevent implantation of an already fertilized egg. Many women on an IUD claim that they have no cycle or they have very, very irregular cycle, and I regret to inform you that in many circumstances that's because you are highly fertile and you're getting pregnant often using the IUD. Many women have figured this out, and if you're having no cycle or very irregular cycles and you're a young woman or a middle-aged woman on any type of IUD, there is a lot of reason to believe that you're having many early miscarriages because of your IUD. I'm going to go on and talk about the other forms of birth control, but I just want you to know, if you are currently on birth control and you're a pro-lifer, I don't hate you, I don't know your situation, and I do know that had someone not shared this information with me, I would have gone on the pill just like most everybody I know, and I don't know that it's your fault. I'm not here to bash anyone, and realize I am fully prepared for people to say hostile things to me in the comments of this video and to lose friends over this. But if I truly believe that someone is being led to the slaughter, I should do what I know to prevent it. NuvaRing. Mechanism of action. Although the primary effect of this action is inhibition of ovulation, other alterations include changes in the cervical mucus, which increases the difficulty of sperm entry into the uterus. We know this. This is all we're taught. And this is the part the medical community withholds from us. And the endometrium, which reduced the likelihood of implantation. So that's the NuvaRing. Logically, there's even more evidence if you think about it. Many of us know people who've gotten pregnant on every single type of birth control out there. So that proves that it didn't prevent that woman from ovulating. Many of us know women who've gotten pregnant on birth control and then went on to have a miscarriage of that baby, and the medical community confirms that the fact that she got pregnant while on birth control can increase that miscarriage, even a later miscarriage. And I don't necessarily like to bring up the Duggars. I know there's a lot of stigma around them. I don't have the same theology as them by any means, not the same religious beliefs, but that happened to them. They got pregnant on birth control and had a miscarriage, and their doctor, who happened to be a Christian as well, and I do believe that they are Christians, regardless of what you think, their doctor said to them, yes, sometimes you can get pregnant on birth control, and if you do, you can have a miscarriage because the birth control is really bad for your womb. A lot of you just will turn your ears off because you don't like the Duggars, but that is just one couple I can think of. who you can Google their information and find that that is true. And there are many others. So there's just the logic factor of that. If you know someone who has gotten pregnant on birth control, well, then that logically proves that they could have also lost that baby because of the birth control. If you're highly logical, that line of thinking will make sense to you. Next, the patch. And I'm not going to read the entire insert because this would be like a super long video, but I'll include the screenshot. You can look at it below. But the mechanism of action at the very last line, other alterations include changes in the cervical mucus, no big deal, and the endometrium, which reduce the likelihood of implantation. Implantation of what? A life. Oral contraception. Although the primary mechanism of this action is inhibition of ovulation, other alterations include changes in the cervical mucus and the endometrium, which reduce the likelihood of implantation. The lining of your womb. It's changing the lining of your womb so that it will be a hostile environment to a child. Receptor binding studies, as well as studies in animals and humans, have shown that norgestimate and 7-deacetyl norgestimate, scrum metabolite, combine high progestational activity with minimal intrinsic androgenicity. Norgestimate in combination with ethinyl estradiol does not counteract the estrogen-induced increases in sex hormone binding globulin, resulting in lower serum testosterone. I'm going to go on and read only the parts that are applicable to what we're talking about. And like I've said many times, it's all linked below. Depo-Provera, the shot. How it works: prevents follicular maturation and ovulation, and results in endometrial thinning. These actions produce its contraceptive effect. And this sounds so unsafe for the female body because it is. Implanon, 3-year birth control method inserted in your arm. The contraceptive effect of Implanon is achieved by suppression of ovulation, increased viscosity of the cervical mucus, and alterations in the endometrium. So I'm seeing a pattern here. Progestin-only pill, the mini pill, altering the endometrium. I'm going to read some more quotes by Abby Johnson, and I think that she will be happy that I did so. Will sexually active women abort their babies every cycle? Probably not, but there's definitely the possibility that you might. You really can't say for sure. That's the scary and morally problematic part. To really drive this point home, let's use an example. Let's say that a demolition company was going to use a wrecking ball to destroy an old school. When the supervisor of the company asks the principal if they made sure to clear the building, the principal says, "We most likely did. We aren't 100% sure, but we're pretty confident." Would that be acceptable to you? Would you be willing to push that button to release the wrecking ball? Would you be willing to risk that there may or may not be life in that building? If you're taking hormonal contraception and you're sexually active, then you release that wrecking ball every month. Luckily, there is a way to space pregnancies without potential loss of life. It's called natural family planning. There are many different methods, and sometimes it takes trying a couple before you find the right one for you. I recommend visiting the website to explore the various methods of NFP out there. This is another quote by Abby Johnson. In the event that you're one of those people who say, "I have to take birth control because of XYZ health condition." No, actually you don't. I'm going to write another article on this, but I will tell you that by taking birth control, you are allowing yourself to be fooled into masking the problem, not solving the root cause of it. NFP and NAPRO technology can actually fix the problem. You can find more information at Fertility Care Centers of America. I'm not an expert in fixing all the health problems in the world, but I will link some really great information below. My favorite one recently is a podcast by Fit to Be. And it's not talking about the morality of birth control at all. It's talking about the health risks, and for those who are prescribed it for health reasons, different things that they can do. Another friend of mine who had really contemplated this problem for herself, because she probably has endometriosis, but she's always thought that if she had to take birth control, she would use it as a medicine for the endometriosis, but she wouldn't treat it as a contraceptive. She would use a different contraception, whether that be condoms or the barrier method. or the fertility awareness method or natural family planning. And if you guys want me to make another video on the fertility awareness method, let me know in the comments below. I might do that, but there's probably so much information out there already. Sure, you have to read a book, no big deal. It's not like an incredibly hard book to understand. In conclusion, or wherever this ends up in the final edit, if it ends up in the final edit, I want to encourage all of us. Be gracious to those who've chosen abortion. If you are using a chemical birth control from this day forward, please don't preach against abortion. Take the plank out of your eye before you take the speck of dust out of your sister's eye. I personally believe condoms are fine. I do respect my Catholic friends that they err on the side of life on this issue. While I disagree about the condom issue with them, at least they err on the side of life. It's something that most of my fellow Protestants can't say, that they err on the side of life on this subject. Those of us who do choose to not use hormonal or chemical birth control for moral reasons, we're afraid to talk about this topic. And I am very ashamed of that fact. We don't want to talk about it because it's not popular even in our Christian community. It's not popular, and we don't want to hurt people's feelings, and I'm ashamed of that, and I repent. I'm sorry. The community of us that know the truth about the contraceptions on the market today, we're afraid to even bring this topic up. If you believe in abortion and you use hormonal contraception, at least I can say that your views are consistent. Like I said before, we use the fertility awareness method, and I learned a ton about my body and women's health through learning this method. Fertility awareness method is not merely tracking your cycle, which is not as effective. It is knowing the signs of fertility, such as cervical fluid quality and the woman's basal body temperature, as well as cervical position. I want to say that I am not a doctor. I'm not a fertility expert. I would say I do know more about it than 90% of people out there, which is sad, but I'm not responsible for you getting pregnant or not getting pregnant. I'm not responsible for your moral choices. I'm not responsible for your knowledge or your lack thereof. I'm not in charge of your fertility. You are. So what are you going to do about it from this day forward? We know for sure that birth control is terrible for women's health. It's hurting women. I met a lady named Tamara in a nursing home who was a young woman there because of a stroke, needing skilled nursing care, living in an old folks home, let's just call it what it is, because she took birth control and it gave her a stroke. It's not even uncommon in the medical community. It's just we're not told that information. Why? You have to ask yourself why they're withholding this information. Money! No matter what you believe on this topic, I've never met a person that I was better than. I want you to know you're loved, and I hope you have a blessed day. Grace and peace.